For a long time, the Intamin Blitz coaster was one of my most anticipated coaster models that I had yet to ride, and so when I knew I was going to Cedar Point, I was extremely excited to ride Maverick as it was regarded as one of the best Blitz coasters, and today I'll be reviewing it. So with that said, let's dive straight into the layout part of the review. So to start the ride, you exit the station and then you go up the first hill with a launch that acts more like a really fast lift hill, which is pretty cool, and then you go down the first beyond vertical drop, and just wow, this first drop may be short, but it is absolutely mental. You get yanked straight out of your seat. It is just awesome. After that, you then enter this intense right turn where you then quickly turn left and then right again, all at a great speed. It is a pretty intense moment in the ride. And afterwards, you go into this sustained ejector airtime hill, which is just incredible. And then you then go into another intense right turn into a fun horseshoe roll inversion where you start to notice that you're losing speed. And then you turn into the second horseshoe roll that is a solid inversion, but there isn't too much hang time. And then you make one final turn where you then head into a building. After a short stop in the building, you're then launched for the second time, and this launch is really intense and crazy, at least compared to the first launch. And then you go into a trimmed hill that slows you down a bit, but then you quickly turn right, regaining your speed, and then you hit up this crazy overbank that it was pretty intense, but also gave a unique sensation. And then you go into the other overbank, which is pretty much the first one, but just on steroids. It's insanely intense and crazy. And then you enter one last awesome ejector airtime hill that provides some of the best airtime on the ride before making one last turn into the brakes. For my experience on Maverick, I rode it 4 times, and I won't lie, my first ride on Maverick left me a bit disappointed. I rode in the second row, and I still really enjoyed Maverick, but it just wasn't as whippy or as bonkers as I was hoping for, and I actually thought after my first ride that it wasn't going to be as good as Top Thrill Dragster. But after riding it a few more times and riding in the back row, almost at nighttime, I finally got what I was expecting from Maverick, and this shows that you definitely will want to do re-rides on Maverick, even if you are disappointed at first. One of my biggest disappointments with Maverick though was the assigned seating, which means that you are not allowed to pick your row, and I actually had to try 5 times to get the back row before I got it, as every other ride or time I was waiting for a row, I got either row 2 or 3. Maverick did also break down for a bit right before what would have been at the time my 3rd ride on it, and was down for about an hour, but I believe this was the only long breakdown for Maverick on the day I visited. As for the restraints on the ride, on my first ride they felt a little tight, but on the later rides I wasn't stapled in as much as I was on the first time around, which improved the experience, and I didn't mind the restraints much at all. The rock work around the coaster, as well as the shooting water on one of the turns, was a nice touch, even though you can't really focus on those aspects while riding, but they are nice to look at when you are walking around Maverick. Also, the flashing lights and loud noises in the building before the second launch was an unexpected but cool surprise. As for the layout of Maverick, what I really like about it is that you get the whole package with an amazing launch, great ejector airtime, fun inversions, crazy intense overbanks, and great pacing. Maverick also is one of the few launch coasters I've ridden that feels like a long ride, with the other 2 launch coasters being Manta at SeaWorld San Diego and Incredicoaster at Disney's California Adventure. But while those 2 coasters are more family oriented and tame, Maverick is definitely one of the more intense coasters I've ridden, especially with the second launch, crazy overbanks, and snappy turns. Maverick to me also has the best drop of any coaster at Cedar Point, and some of my favorite moments were the ejector hills, second launch, and the second overbank. Overall, Maverick is a fantastic coaster and one of my favorite Intamin coasters I've ridden. What is awesome about this coaster is that there are so many amazing moments in the ride that feel very different from one another. For many of my favorite coasters, I mostly remember them for having awesome airtime, a great or great inversions, or insane intensity, but usually not all of the above. But for Maverick, it has all of these, and so for that reason, I'm going to give Maverick a score of a 10 out of 10, and yes, I know that I've already given the same score to a few coasters now, but to me, a 10 out of 10 ride doesn't necessarily have to be perfect, it just has to be a world-class coaster, and Maverick is certainly that. So, what do you think of Maverick? Put your opinions down in the comments, and thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all next time here on Coaster Hour.